So today I'm going to share with you how I overcame each major challenge in our studio flat renovation. If you've been following this video series, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But even if you haven't, stick around because some of these fixes may trigger an idea in your head as to how you can fix some things around your home.
Out back with a hammer in hand, turning old walls into something grand. Dust on his boots, plans in his head, tools all around and a vision ahead. Lisa's inside where the screens are aglow, cutting the clips so the story flows. Coffee in hand, headphones on tight, making magic on the timeline late at night. Oh, we fix it and film it, building dreams from the ground. Phillips making sawdust while Lisa cuts the sound. From the workshop to the edit suite, we're making something real and sweet. Yeah, we fix it and film it, so come along and see this little YouTube world of ours where we make reality.
Fitting this composite benchtop was, wow, a real challenge. Basically because of the acute corners at this end and this corner, which went right narrow towards the back there. And I also wanted to wrap the composite benchtop around the front of the upright cupboards here. So that was a real challenge, and how I accomplished that was I built a template that would fit perfectly. I'll show you how I did that. So this is the template. I actually kept it as a testament to my madness. But it did the job. Now, how did I build this? How did I go about working out the exact angles and etc. and measurements? Well, I used a sliding bevel and I transferred the angle in against the walls in the kitchen to the timber, and I cut a short piece of timber to the right angle so that would slide right into the corner, and then I cut a separate piece of timber where I transferred the angle on the other end of the bench, which was slightly different angle by the way, so I cut this one to suit. Well, you might be asking yourself, why did I use two pieces of timber when I could have used one? It's a good question, but there's a good reason why. Let me tell you why. When you stretch your tape measure from one corner to the next corner, with them being very acute angles, your tape can't go right to the sharp point at either end. So you can't get an exact distance between the two end points. I took these two pieces of timber into the kitchen, laid them where the benchtop was going to be along the back wall, and where they overlapped, so I pushed them both into the corners, and where they overlapped I made a mark and I cut that off, so I was able to get the precise distance between the two sharp points. So that's how I did the back part of the template. So next I had to establish the front edge of the bench where it had to be cut. So I fastened on these two pieces of timber either end exactly according to the correct angle, fastened them on, and then I measured from the back to the front edge of the bench, allowing for an overhang over the cabinetry, and I cut that piece of timber off and this piece of timber off, which gave the right angle, and then I fastened in a piece of timber there to hold them in position. I then put the template in position and marked where the pantry cupboard came up to. I made a mark on this piece of timber and same on the other end. And then I took a straight line through where that intersected. That gave me the exact mount that I needed to allow for the bench to wrap around the cupboards. Having cut the bench top to size to fit precisely in position, the next challenge was actually getting it in here. It was ridiculously hard. And I thought, how am I going to do this? Well, what I did was, I had my nephew Jeremy helping me. And what we did was we used the template, which was a lot lighter than this, because the template was built out of timber. And we practiced several times lifting the template into position. Let me show you just how we went about it, just using a plank. So I've got this plank here. Obviously, this is a lot shorter and a lot smaller overall and a lot lighter. So tremendously much easier than the real thing. So what we did, we both had to be underneath the composite bench top, and we worked out that we had to first of all lift it on an acute angle like this, and then we had to lift it above the overhead cupboards here until we got this end here over the bench top, and then we slid that into the corner, that end corner there, and then slid this other end over the top of the pantry cupboard, and then we had to tip it and slide it right close to the window architrave, slide it all the way down, and then we had to tip it forward until it was parallel to the surface it was going to go on, and then we got that end in and we slid this down. So yeah, unbelievable. It was nearly impossible, but we got it done. And having said that, we only had one go at it really in the final composite benchtop installation. So we had to practice a number of times with the template because before putting the composite benchtop in for the last time, we had to have it silicone all along the top of the cabinetry so it was glued into position. Anyway, we got the impossible done. Also, what was a real challenge was the cutting of the holes in for the sink and the cooktop. I hadn't ever done that before, and I was wondering how I'd go, because I had to cut the holes in this benchtop in position. And of course, the way you cut a benchtop, composite stone benchtop, is using a grinder with, or the way I did it was use a grinder with a diamond cutting blade diamond wheel in the grinder. And of course that produces a lot of dust. So somehow I had to cut this without getting all the dust over the existing cabinetry and into the flat. What I did was, after marking out precisely the size of the holes to cut, I actually taped up underneath, and then I masked off this whole room. So I taped some plastic sheeting tightly up around the window and across to here, and I had two poles sitting here, I think from memory, which kept the plastic sheeting enclosed, and I had it all sealed off to the window, and the window open of course, and I had a mask, a good quality breathing mask, and then I set about cutting the holes out of the bench top. And it seemed to do the job, because all the dust went on the bench top and out the window, and there was basically no dust got anywhere else in the flat, which I was really relieved about. But yeah, it got me wondering, how am I going to do this? Because I've got to cut it in position, because I couldn't lift it in after the big hole was in it, because it's too weak. It would have cracked through here and here. So I had to do it after it was in position. But like a lot of things, it just takes a bit of nutting it out, just thinking the process through and not hurrying to the end point, just giving yourself time to think of a way around it. And there's always a solution, just takes a bit of time getting there. The cabinetry, I'd never really fitted kitchen cabinetry before. That was a real learning exercise for me, especially with these acute angles. We were originally thinking of making this storage space in here underneath, but we wanted to go with drawers, and so this cupboard goes along there, and we just made that a void, which meant I needed to build a framework to support this bench top, actually. So the thing that was really important was to adjust the cabinetry forward and pack it out from the wall slightly, so that these two corners, the framework of the pantry cupboard and the cabinetry here, met up so that it looked neat while still allowing the drawers to open.
Measuring twice to cut once clean, working out a way to build their dream, patching, painting, leveling floors, always one job away from starting 10 more.
Lisa's trimming clips like a movie pro, adding the beats to the hammer blows, thumbnails popping, the title's tied, gonna post that upload later tonight. Oh, we fix it and film it, building dreams from the ground. Phillips making sawdust while Lisa cuts the sound. From the workshop to the edit suite, we're making something real and sweet. Yeah, we fix it and film it, so come along and see this little YouTube world of ours where we make reality.
So between these two posts was originally a mud brick wall, which I had to demolish to make room for the shower. Now, because the posts jutted into the room, Lisa came up with a really good idea, and that was to make them a feature. The trouble was that the posts were not only not upright, they were also twisted. So by the time I had corrected that by fastening timber on that was thicker at one end and thinner at the other end, I was a little twisted myself. So I thought, while I was at it, I may as well make it the right size to suit the tiles I was using. And of course then I lined it with Villa board, and then waterproofed it, and then finally tiled it. Getting the old glazed mosaics off this area and in the bathroom area, wow, that was a whole nother story. Being thin set, cement bedded, it was like glued on like crazy. When I installed the exhaust fan with the heat lamps on it, it required there be a certain amount of space around it for safety reasons, because it gets quite hot obviously with the heat lamps, and there needed to be enough room for that heat to ventilate away. So having put in a new ceiling, there still wasn't sufficient room between this ceiling and the original ceiling for that space, required space. So I had to cut up into the original ceiling and box that in, so it was the whole unit was sealed off so vermin couldn't enter. And then it was a matter of me running the ducting all the way between the joists and outside. And the other thing is too that when I wanted to install this new toilet, it needs to go up against a flat wall, not the original mud brick wall. So I needed to render this wall. Now that was some feat, because this wall was out of level, as well as the uneven surface because it's mud brick. It required up to 40 mil thick of render in some places, so I needed to put, I think I ended up putting about 4 layers of render. I'd render on all the thick places and then wait for that to dry and then render more. I made a mix of sand, cement and lime, and I painted the mud brick wall with like a Bondcrete product that would, Bondcrete and cement powder mixed, so that the render would cling to the mud brick surface, and it worked really well. So yeah, pretty pleased. We ended up being able to install the new toilet flush up against the wall, pardon the pun. Anyway, really pleased with the outcome of it. It's nice and neat now. So when it came to removing the old toilet, when I was demolishing everything, I realised it actually had been installed out of square to the wall, which was a real surprise. So when I came to install the new toilet, I needed to make sure that the plumbing was redone so that the toilet could be installed nice and square to the walls. So this is where the bricks had to be smashed out to accommodate the new plumbing pipe. This brick was broken out, this one completely removed, and once the plumbing pipe was connected up, then I had to make this look like it had never been broken out. And so what I did was I used the broken bits of brick and basically in effect glued them in place with a sand, cement, lime mix, and filled it all up, and then faced it off with a sand, cement, lime mix using a little small trowel tool and a large steel trowel and a wooden float and a bit of a spatula here, so, and a pointing tool as well. And I put in these fake joints, made it look like the mud brick. Also, I found this old paintbrush head would brushed across the damp surface when I just faced it. I brushed this across to give it the right texture to look like the mud brick. And I think you'd agree with me that this looks pretty similar to the adjacent bricks. So you have to be resourceful, and that's better. You really do have to be resourceful when you are working with second-hand or renovating an older place. You've got to come up with intuitive ways of fixing unique problems. So when it came to fastening the skirting board to the wall, that was a real challenge because there was nowhere to nail it to except the posts that ran about every 2.5 meters. So what I did was I used construction adhesive, very generous amounts, to glue it onto this bottom ledge, and wherever the wall protruded, I'd put a lot of construction adhesive there too, and pressed it into position. And then also what I did to hold it against the wall was to use timbers to jam between this wall and the wall opposite, so that I could hold the skirting board firmly in for several days until the construction adhesive had really dried. And then I was left with this gap, that varying size gap, depending on where the wall went in and out. And I used this plasterer's base coat, which is plasterers used to put on the walls of plasterboard walls over the joints, and I press it down in there until it went hard and shrunk, and then I'd put more in and then smoothed it all off and then painted the skirting board and the filled in area with the same paint colour. And it came up looking really good. I was quite impressed with the finish. When I was removing the mud brick wall in the kitchen and the bathroom and the flat wall, wow, it was a bit of a challenge. They were very, very heavy, 24 kilos each of these bricks weigh. So I had to stand really close to the wall when I was removing them, hold them close to my chest and keep my back straight, otherwise I'd really do damage to my back. Just how did I go about breaking into the wall? Well, I used a couple of simple tools, a bolster, brick bolster, heavy hammer, broke up the top course first, and then worked on the vertical joints, and then hit this bolster in and levered the brick up. And once I'd got one out, then the others would follow quite easily, because I wanted to not break these up because I might want to use them in the future. But it all went to plan. I'll tell you something that was interesting. I came across barbed wire in every joint, I think it was, fastened at either end to the timber posts. So I had to cut the wire or pull the nails out that were holding the wire into the post and coil it up and place it aside so I didn't jag myself on the barbs. So anyway, that's how I went about removing the mud brick wall. I hope these fixes have sparked some ideas in your head as to how you can fix some of the things around your home. If you have a challenge, why don't you share it on the comments section or on community post, and we'll brainstorm some ideas around it. Anyway, until next time, have a good one. Cheers. Today I'm going to share with you how I found when I installed the what's it called?
Exhaust fan.
When my brain was installed, there was malfunctioning.
I forgot
I'm so tired today.
I forgot what I was going to say.
So while I was at it, I thought I may as well make the posts the right size to suit the tiles I was using.
I then lined it with Billboard. Just say that, don't touch it, don't touch it.
I then lined it with Villa board.
I then
So today I'm going to share with you how I overcome each major challenge in our
again!